Now, we know that it is constituency week, and so many of our MLAs are being pulled in multiple directions, whether it's work that they need to do here and back at home. So for those of you that have joined us, we really do appreciate it. I know that our Education Minister, Jeff Johnson, would like to make introductions of our MLAs. And so I'd like to invite Minister Johnson to come up and make some remarks and introductions.
Robin Campbell doing me now? Well, I expect nothing less from him. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. And before I introduce my colleagues from the legislature, maybe just bring some greetings and a few comments from behalf of the Premier and my caucus colleagues, I would like to thank Patty. She's going to miss this microphone probably. She and us, I'm sure. But she has served before really well. She's worked extremely hard for, I thought this was your fourth term, or that was your three term?
That's trustee, 2 as president.
Okay, gotcha. She's done an incredible job, and the PSBAA has been very active on a number of really important files for us, so that we have that engagement, we have that feedback from you folks. And Mary Lynn and Patty have really driven that, and as a minister, we want to make good decisions. My caucus colleagues are here because it's important for us to make good decisions and hear from you, and we can't make good decisions if we don't have good information. And if you're not engaged and you're not informing us, we can't make the best decisions for our kids. So on behalf of the Premier and all my colleagues, I want to thank you, Patty, especially because you're retiring as president after this week. But you truly have done a great job. It's been a pleasure working with you. So can we give it a As Patty mentioned, we had a number of MLAs here tonight. I'd like to introduce the ones I see and maybe ask that I don't know who are here to identify themselves. But we have picked a difficult night because there are, I know there's 2 other receptions ongoing this time, including the Minister of Municipal Affairs at the AMAs is hosting a reception for all of the rural councillors across the province, and many colleagues are at that. So the turnout of these value upgrades is important to us. So I see my colleague Mr. Sandra Jansen here from Calgary. Sandra, you want to wave? There's Dave Quest. Dave, give us a wave from the former teacher Edmonton for Edmonton Elementary School. I saw Wayne Rysdale, Minister of Infrastructure, so he actually was still busy out there. Former teacher as well. We've got Kathy Olson was here. I think she's gone. Kathy, you here still? Robin Campbell, well, they can do yeah, I think I've caught all my colleagues except Robin Campbell, Minister of Aboriginal Relations, right over there. Have I missed any of my caucus colleagues? My Chief of Staff, of course, Tom Bradley's in the back corner. If you actually, that's the brains of the operation. Meetings and things lined up, he's the guy to make sure you get to the blackboard. Now, I know that Brian Mason is here. Brian, where are you, my friend? I don't want to miss anyone. Can you introduce, who have you got here for caucus colleagues?
Darren Billis, our education critic.
Darren, I don't have anyone from the Liberals here. Have I missed anybody? Rod Sherman? Okay, how about the Wild Roses? Have we got anybody? Rod, do you have anyone else from your caucus here you want to introduce? Okay, well, thanks for coming. You know, there's lots I could say to try to, just welcome you and set the tone, I think, for what is going to be a really important and incredible journey for some of you, and a continuation of a really important journey for others. But the first thing I'd like to do is just ask how many of you are brand new trustees? Can you either raise your hand or stand up? I want to thank you because the role of school boards, the role of trustees is a very important one. It's a role that's evolving like the role of others in our education system. But that local knowledge, the local decision making, the local engagement, it's talked about a lot of inspiring education. It's critical. It doesn't mean that the role of trustees and school boards in 2030 will be the same as it was in 1930, but it really means that it is important. It's critical. And many things about the system are evolving, and they're evolving along the blueprint that we have that's called Inspiring Education. If you have not read that document, if you have not looked at it, if you have not had a strategic planning session about it as a school board, I ask you, encourage you to do that. And make sure that your new trustees are versed in it. It is kind of the guidepost that we're using as a ministry, and it is the catalyst for a lot of the changes you're seeing in the system. And it was the blueprint for the Education Act, and Patty talked about that. It's been an incredible year. We passed the Education Act, which that was the third crack at it. It took a lot of work, and a lot of credit to Dave Hancock, and a lot of credit to Thomas Sukazik for bringing previous versions forward and helping us work through the pain of that. But we passed the Education Act within the last year. We got a 4-year deal with the ATA so that we can focus on other things that are really important. We've also worked on the capital plan, the largest capital plan this province has ever seen. So the promise from the Premier that we're going to build 50 new schools and 70 modernizations, and you're going to see more announcements coming soon. We announced 30 in the spring. There's actually 70 other projects that are ongoing right now or recently completed, and you're going to see a lot more announced before the end of the year, and then into the new year. The other things that we've announced in the spring along the lines of Inspiring Ed is the Dual Crediting Project, which is really important and I think really exciting. There's a high school flexibility program that we're rolling out more broadly across the province, which really delinks kind of accrediting kids based on how much time they sit at a desk, based on what they actually know, or what their skills, their capacity, their competencies are. It's a fundamental shift in our education system, and we need your help to make sure we do that. We announced changes to the PATs, which is something the Premier promised. We're modernizing those and along the lines of the education and Inspiring Ed blueprint. We've announced that we're going to have more times throughout the year that we're going to have diploma exams. We're going to make those digital so we can actually move in the future to exams on demand. So that as we get into this 21st century, we actually can achieve learning any pace, any place, any time. You can't do that. You can't say you're going to do that and then tell kids to show up on one date of the year to write the exam. I know she was at the other reception and she might be tied up there with counselors, but Maureen Kubinitz, one of your former presidents from ASBA, is heading up our regulatory review for the Education Act. And that stuff's really important, and I know the PSBAA has been active in that. You've come through a very difficult budget, and I want to thank you for the way you approached that. And I want to talk about that just in a quick second, but I also want to say, if that's for me, just take a lesson. The other exciting thing I think that we've announced as in the process, and I want to make sure you're engaged in, is the Task Force on Teaching Excellence. When I sat around a dinner table as Canada's representative in the APEC meetings in Korea over a year ago, and I know I've told this story, if you've heard it, I apologize, but I sat with the Minister of Education from China, who was to my left, Japan was to my right, the Russian deputy was across the table from me, the Korean minister was there, the deputy secretary from the U.S. is at the table. I asked the Chinese minister, what are the most important things, the biggest challenges, the number one priorities we're working on? He said two things. And it started a discussion on the table, and we all agreed. This is what every education minister really is focused on, that we can control and have influence over. And one is equitable opportunity for those educational access and those opportunities for our kids. How do we get equitable access for every one of our kids, regardless of where they live, what their background is, what their color is, how rich their parents are, how we care about them. And the second thing was teaching quality. The number one factor outside of the engagement of the parents in the home is how good is the teacher in front of those kids and working with those kids. So part of what's coming out of Inspiring Ed and discussions like that is we launched the task force on teaching excellence. And they have a broad mandate to look at both sides of the coin. It's everything from how do we train our teachers in the 21st century context with their roles changing, how do we support them, how do we resource them, how do we give them enough time to prepare, but also how do we give Albertans the assurance that we're weeding out the weak teachers and that we're profiling and exalting the great ones. And those are really interesting conversations. We've got a fantastic group together, put and sent out across the province. And the president, Nate Leonard Fulton, is chairing that, and he's doing a good job. I know Naresh Bhargava, who's here, is on that committee. Sandra Jansen is the vice chair from that committee, our minister of
Family and Community Safety.
Family and Community Safety. I always mix that up. I apologize. And you know, that's a statement right there. That our Premier has set aside a social minister's chair just for family and community safety, just to work on bullying, just to work on how do we make sure that family domestic violence is in check, and we're working on that. That's a huge statement of what this Premier is all about. Christine Cusinelli, my MLA colleague from Calgary's also just joined us. So thanks, Christine. I really don't want to talk any much longer. I want to say thank you for the way you approached the difficult budget. It was a difficult budget. The province was hit with a drop in revenues in the tune of $6 billion, virtually overnight, because of market conditions. You've responded, and we appreciate that. I want to give credit to our Premier, because of all the budget line items that actually decreased, whether it was, you heard about post-secondary or -7%, and others, virtually all of them went down. The only one of the major ones that didn't go down was education. And we said we're going to fund every new kid coming in the system, and our enrollment figures are way up compared to what we projected. So you're going to see at the end of the day that the education budget this year is going to be about $300 million more than it was last year. The estimates in the budget were in the $200 million range, but I think with the enrollment increase, it's going to be closer to $300 million. But that being said, it's still a difficult job. And the trusteeship and the superintendents in the room, I can't think of a more important job in the province if you want to have impact for the future of Alberta. And your willingness to step forward and take that on, not only on behalf of your kids, but my kids and the next generation, is something that's very honorable and something that we appreciate. And I want to tell you, as I close, that you can be very proud of the job you're doing and the job that people did before you. As I travel the world in my new designation as chair of the Council of Ministers of Education of Canada, I go to the meetings of the global education ministers, because Canada doesn't have a national or federal education ministry. And when we have those meetings, the APEC, the UNESCO, the UN meetings, the OECD meetings, it's the chair of CNAC that goes to represent the country. And the recent studies that have come out echo what previous studies have said, which is Alberta is one of the top performing English jurisdictions in the entire planet. You know, we can talk about the challenges we have. There are frustrations. People want us to do better. But because of the work you do and our great teachers in the classroom and superintendents in Alberta, which I think are second to none, I get called from people like 2 weeks ago, the Alaska State Senate Committee on Finance and Education, who want me to go up there to present to them because Alberta has the best performing education system in the English-speaking world. And when the PSBAA results come out, with PSBAA, which is the Program for International Assessment of Adult Competencies, which is 16 to 65-year-olds, it's a massive study, only done once every decade, 466 pages long, and it lists about 35 different countries and how they perform on literacy, numeracy, and problem solving in the digital age. Canada performs in the average, but if you look at where Alberta performs inside of Canada, we're the #1 jurisdiction in Canada of every one of those 3 metrics. And we're at or above the OECD average on every factor. So you do a good job. We can always do better. And I look forward to working with you. I'm sorry I've taken up too much time, but this is the only opportunity I have to speak to the PSBAA. I know we've got the Catholic trustees on Friday or Saturday, and the ASBA, myself and my colleagues are at through next week. So we look forward to getting to know the new ones, and we look forward to getting to know the experienced ones better. And we wish Patty everything, nothing but the best with her future endeavors. Thank you so much for serving. Have a great night.